As 2019 was ending, 2019, for whatever reason, the election and everything associated with the primary, it felt like there were a long way to go. It's like as long as you were in 2019, you knew that there was another year. There was something else that had to take place before you really got into the main stretch. 2020 doesn't feel that way. 2020, there's this kind of angst associated with just being close to something that you don't know the answer to. What is going to happen in this primary? Who is going to win this primary? Who is going to win the general election? Meaning, what is the world going to look like at the end of 2020? And all of it will be decided within a few months. Right now, I'm sorry. In 1 month, less than a month, Iowa will take place. Now, the campaigns have been swarming Iowa, swarming New Hampshire. Essentially, they're trying to make their stand there because they want to show a strong showing within the first few states. There's another reason to that, though. Buttigieg is not a thing beyond Iowa and New Hampshire, and it behooves the campaigns to not allow him to be such by destroying him in Iowa. If Buttigieg does not have a strong showing in Iowa, if he doesn't place first in Iowa, if he doesn't place first or second in New Hampshire, Buttigieg's campaign is officially over. If Sanders sprints through the first few states, then the question will be posed to Elizabeth Warren, why are you in the race? Now, the catch here is the election, the polling, and what things stand today or how they stand today. I like to watch, or I like to look at, Morning Consult. Morning Consult is a decent poll. It also lines up pretty well with the Real Clear Politics average, meaning the two polls are similar in the way they, in the answers that they give, let's say it that way. Morning Consult added another section, Super Tuesday. Now, Super Tuesday is essentially when all of these states, meaning you get Iowa, you get New Hampshire, I think those are like a week apart. But then in March 3rd, you get a litany of states. Big states, huge states, like California, for example. California was not on the marquee the last time around, but California has now become more prominent. Some people say this was done in order to help Kamala Harris because they thought top-tier Kamala Harris would still be in the race at this point. Whatever the reasoning is, California is now in play, and with the amount of delegates that California gives, that is a massive, massive haul. All of these states are going to take place on one day. The catch becomes this Super Tuesday figure that was added by Morning Consult looks amazingly well for Sanders. Even beyond the national polling, the Super Tuesday one looks amazingly well for Sanders. And I've told you before that national polls lie. Ultimately, those elections are decided in the states. Whatever the national sentiment is, it's decided in the states. And national sentiment can change depending on what happens in the states. Super Tuesday, Bernie Sanders doing exceptionally well in the running for that contest or those contests. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support. PayPal, Patron. This content is brought to you by you because it is instantly demonetized, so even $1 helps. I like polling trends. I'm always fascinated by the polling trends, especially when those trends are consistent over multiple polls, meaning different polling places have their differing methodologies, but if they're coming back with similar results within the context of those trends, then something is going on there within that particular demographic that I trust, whether or not the number is explicitly what it is almost secondary. One of the trends, however, is that Joe Biden often leads in the national polling. Right here, 31%, 23%. Even when you look at a RCP average, Joe Biden, 29.3%, Sanders, 20.3%. If you look at this blue line is Sanders, it's going If you look at Biden's, it's slightly trending down. It's doing. Oh, I see. It went from 29.7 to 29.3. Okay, so slightly trending down. It's just hard to see. Morning consult. Look at theirs. Same phenomena. Look at Biden. Slight trend down. Sanders. Slight trend up. Morning consult is a pretty decent poll. Now, they've added Super Tuesday. Fascinating. Now, when you look at Super Tuesday, look at this. It shrinks 29% to 25%. Warren, no one else is close. But look at this, a 4-point difference, as opposed to looking at it from the national polling. Now, I've said on more than one occasion, again, national polling lies, national polling lies. National polling lies because ultimately, as you go from state to state to state, if something is happening, phenomena, in the various states leading up to the point where the person was considered to be maybe perhaps more electable, for example. Meaning, the entire premise of Biden's campaign is that he is more electable. And if you're going from state to state to state and he's losing in those states, then it challenges the very premise of his campaign. National polling lies. Things have to take place within the context of the states. Things like momentum and everything else. But in this very specific election, where electability is prominent on the marquee, then the states matter that much more. Biden has to show that he's more electable, and if anything challenges that, even in a small measure, where it becomes clear that maybe he's not, or at the very least the other guys are just as electable with better ideas, then the premise for Biden campaigns unravels. I hope you understand what I mean by this. Meaning, whatever this national polling says, the national polling is always secondary to what actually taking place in the states. The states are the deciding factor, not the national sentiment. And the national sentiment can change, again, depending on what happens in the states. This is doubly true in this campaign for one Joe Biden. So when I saw this, and I said, wow, Sanders is doing extremely well. Only 4-point difference. That's striking distance, clearly. I mean, in some polls, that's within the margin of error. So I started to figure out, okay, what are they talking about? So first, Super Tuesday states, and this is a nifty calendar, February 3rd, Iowa, February 11th, New Hampshire, February 22nd, Nevada, February 29th, South Carolina, March 3rd, Super Tuesday. Look at all of this. Alabama, American Samoa, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Democrats abroad, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia. Look at all of that. Look at all of that. Now, that's on March 3rd, meaning a ton of delegates are going to be awarded on March 3rd. And with all of these states, when they jumble the numbers, they come back and say, well, look, it looks like Sanders is only about 4 percentage points away. And then look at something else. RCP. Before we even get to Super Tuesday, what? Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina. I started figuring, I said, all right, well, who's leading Iowa? Sanders. The average of all the polls, Sanders leads Iowa. What about New Hampshire? Sanders pulling ahead of Biden in this, 22.7 to 18.7. Sanders leading the first two primary states. Nevada, I think Warren was ahead in this one. Biden 29, Warren 20, Sanders 19. Biden is pulling ahead in Nevada. South Carolina, Biden crushes everybody. Not even close. Not even close. Now, Buttigieg needs to show in those first two. So Biden is strong in South Carolina, clearly. Nevada, it looks like he's strong in. But then you get into California, you get into some of these other states. Biden, there's a 0.2 difference between Sanders and Biden in California. And my point is this, it's very basic. Leading into the Super Tuesday states, going from state to state to state, it is infinitely conceivable that Sanders could take Iowa, He could take New Hampshire. And the results of those two have influence on what took place or what takes place in Nevada. Biden is probably going to take South Carolina, but if at the very least you could get some delegates out the deal, you carry it on, especially if you've won the first two. My point is, there's something to be said for momentum, especially in this particular race where electability is so high on the marquee. If the premise of Joe Biden's campaign can be undermined, then Joe Biden's campaign will be undermined. It will be a detriment to his campaign, considering how much emphasis he's placed on this notion that I'm the guy that could beat Trump. I'm the safe bet. In the very least, in these Super Tuesday states, it looks like people have questions and perhaps doubts. All things considering, this is not a bad placement for Sanders, and he is within striking distance. And again, I make the point that if he takes those states, the other states potentially start to question the very premise of Joe Biden's campaign. This is a good placement for Sanders. This is a good, strong placement for Sanders. I'm going to end this here. I saw somebody send something. Give me 1 second. Morning Consult is a good poll, though. I've followed their stuff for a while, and you can see for yourself it lines up with the average of the polls, even though they are doing their own distinct poll. Cool Blue 71. In 2016 Democratic primaries, 45 to 64 and 65 plus demographic outvoted those who were 17 to 29 and 30 to 44, say 60% to 40%. It's why Hillary won some states by less than 5 points. In 2020, Bernie cannot repeat that if he wants the norm. Well, here's the catch, though. The younger demographic is going to be a higher vote tally in this race. And you must also understand that what Sanders has been trying to do is to expand the electorate. Meaning, whatever these polling agencies come back with, it is difficult to ascertain Sanders' support. Meaning, he's doing this. In conventional terms, in the way they do polling, Sanders is still taking the number 1 spot or the number 2 or number 3 spot, meaning striking distance in the various states. It is hard to quantify how much support he pulls into the political process. And if he does pull and energize a huge amount of support into the political process, then that may not necessarily be taken into account from the standpoint of the polling, but it will definitely show up on election day. It is estimated, or it's thought, that the 21 demographic, or the younger demographic, for the first time will be the largest demographic voting, or the very least larger than the older demographic. But I agree with you. It looks pretty bad from the sense of one side wants to stay the same and the other side wants to change. But those people are dying off. It's not good or bad, I'm just point of fact. And the younger demographic are getting more politically astute and aware. If Sanders can pull those people into the process and keep those people into the process, then he wins this. And he wins the presidential election. Darren DeLevy. Will the corrupt Democrats in Iowa steal it via coin flipping again? That's a good question. And I thought that was Nevada, but I could be wrong. You might be right. That's the catch. Sanders is just the man, and he can be cheated. And what does he do if he is cheated? I know they're not going to have this conversation aloud because they want to, at the very least, go with this notion of a clean process. But his supporters are thinking it. His supporters, I tell you, are absolutely thinking it. Are they going to cheat him, and what's going to be the response if they do cheat him? Those type of questions. But we don't know. We don't know. But we will find out, and we will find out this year. Cool Blue 71. I mean, the 17 to 29 and 30 to 44 demographic groups cannot be severely outvoted. Oh, yes, that's true. By 45 and 64 and 65 if they want Bernie Sanders. And yes, agreed. 1,000% agreed. 1,000% agreed. His numbers with the 65 plus is abominable. It's utterly astonishingly low, if I'm not mistaken, in single digits or close to it. By the same token, that process absolutely flips on its head when you get to the younger demographics. I agree with you, Cool Blue. The younger demographics will have to turn out and have to be consistent. And part of the reason they're not entirely included in the polling, at least not, they may be underestimated, let's say it that way, is because that demographic tends to be flaky. Well, the difference here is the campaign is trying to give them something to get their asses out and vote and campaign and work for. And hopefully it keeps them engaged. You're right. If he hopes to win this, you can't have the older demographic entirely swamping the process. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.